Randy?
Yeah, I mean, I would have to plus 2,000 for the for the parental engagement piece. It can be overstated, how influential and how heavy the voice of parents are for folks. Because ultimately, while children are the ultimate sort of quote unquote customer or like folks that schools are focusing on, it's really about families. And, children are children for a reason, especially at the elementary level. They can't advocate and speak up for themselves. And so while they might be seeing some things and they might see that their, changes ought to be made, they don't necessarily have the faculty to be able to channel that up to a board member, to the principal, to anybody that may be a decision maker that can get there. But the parent does, and I understand, too, that historically, there hasn't been the most, I think, responsive approach from the city or the school district to Bayview in particular as a neighborhood when folks do pipe up. And it takes extraordinary efforts to get what seems like just small changes made. But, if I could speak for you, Allison, I know personally that this board is one of the most committed boards I've seen in this city. And in my work in education policy, I'm an attorney. And so in advocacy in different communities, I've spent time in 7 to 8 different cities doing similar work around advocacy. And you just don't have the luxury of a board like this one. Everybody's pretty much community oriented and rooted, and they want to hear about it. I heard through the grapevine that this board just gave a tremendous information request to some of the folks over at the central office to be able to make some accountability actually happen in real. And that came and bubbled up from community voices. And so I think there's that. I think, though, the sort of pre-step to the engagement is definitely to have to be properly equipped with the information and the knowledge about what's happening, what's available or not available at your school. The more direct and precise you can be with your requests, and then, next level is attaching that then to a budgetary ask or some recommendation on how we shift a resource here or there to make it happen. But coming to the forefront and say, here's the homework I've done. Here's the research I have. Here's what other partners have said. Here's what folks in the community have asked for 10, 20 years ago and not seeing it. Now you got a case, and it's going to be really hard to ignore you. And so I think where Joy mentioned a bunch of different organizations, while folks are stretched thin because they're doing the programming work, you have very rich institutional knowledge bases in folks like Diane Gray, in folks like Emily Wade Thompson, Dr. Virginia Marshall, people that can speak to what's been around and available for us for a long time and sort of give you the Cliff Notes version of that. So you don't have to find yourself in front of Google for, 3 nights in a row before you go to the board meeting. But Urban Ed is just a so small organization, but to the degree that anybody needs help or support in getting to the school board hearing and, finessing through the agenda, because they're kind of long sometimes and it gets a little dry sometimes. Sorry, Allison, just got to keep it real for the people. But we're here to help. I would love to pass that along to my staff or the volunteers who, are very interested in passing along the authentic voice of the parents to make some change real. But it doesn't start until you start. They're used to seeing us, so I'm annoying already.
No, that's great. So I'm going to give you a couple scenarios, and I'd like you to sort of help me work through what can be offered to some of these kids to sort of help, like, for the rest of the year. So, for example, a homeless youth, right? They walk into one of your programs. What do they do? Joy?
Yeah, great question. We recently were named as a youth access point. So if you do find a young person that is homeless, like, you can send them to 3rd Street. We have case managers. We have a housing coordinator that can help put them through the one system, help get them the services and address some of their underlying issues as well with, like, behavioral health as well. Also give them something to eat. We just started a CSA box program working with Imperfect Produce and the wholesale produce market. So, like, if a young person needs something to eat or needs help with just housing, like, we can help get that addressed. So I'm asking people to please send young people our way. Our young people just did the homeless point in time count. So we know that we have several young people out here who need help, a lot of homeless families. We see them at schools when we're serving them at schools as well. So please get the word out that we are a youth access point and we can really take care of these young people's needs.
Right. And one thing that I'll commit to as part of not only One Bayview Speaks, but also One Bayview Insiders to get that information out as part of like the follow-up. So I think that's great. Another parent of a Black male child who has been in trouble with the law. Randy?
How can I, is this a question that just came from the audience?
No. So I'm saying, given that scenario, right?
Yep.
Between now and the end of the year, what services, et cetera, can sort of be leveraged for this person to make their experience better?
Well, it's difficult. It depends. It depends. I'm sorry, I hate to give you a lawyerly answer, but it does depend. Depends on the severity of the situation. It depends on maybe where some of the proceedings or action is sort of being sourced. Is it on the school district side? Is it with the Department of Probation, the juvenile hall? That sort of jurisdictional question aside, I mean, it is important, but that aside, and again, depending on how young the youth is, I think this is where third-party nonprofits that have been in the community and sort of like literally save lives. We hear Supervisor Walton talk about this all the time, but shout out to Alive and Free with Dr. Marshall and his team being sort of on the forefront of this years back, but now being an expert and being one of those go-to sources for that. It really takes, kind of borrowing from the village mentality, it takes a village and then it takes a village leader, a village manager, if you will, that is able to spend on the fly a lot more time with that young person. I think that turns into a case management type of situation. And so you want to look for nonprofits that have the capacity for that. But in addition, you want to, I hesitate to say talk to like Bayview Legal or some other folks that can get involved, because again, it just would depend on the severity of it. But you certainly have options or routes depending on what nonprofit you're looking at, and depending on which angle is coming from, to help you walk through that process. Because understanding, the trauma involved, one, with whatever the incident was, then two, the proceeding and whatever treatment is happening there's a lot of different intervention points that we'd have to hit. And it wouldn't just rest with the young man. There's also, what are you doing for the parent and the support there? If we have a parent that doesn't necessarily have the immediate access to transportation and he can't be late to his, probation meeting, that's something that a counseling session is not going to fix. That's a basic service that we got to get involved with right away. Either somebody has a voucher for you to take the T-line or Uber or not. And that could, fly in the face of progress if we can't even get there. So, I'm sorry to rest on it depends, but I think if we had a specific situation, we could talk about what trajectory we take. Urban Ed Academy hasn't necessarily had those instances because we deal with elementary students, but we have fantastic partners that have. And to the degree you're not getting what you need from the public agency, there are nonprofits out there that are willing to take on the mantle.
Perfect. And just to chime in really quickly, Valerie Higgins, thanks so much for sharing. She pointed out Bayview Hunters Point Foundation can definitely help. YMCA, YCD as like some potential options. Allison, I actually wanted to sort of put forward this whole idea. So a child who's actually an illegal immigrant, or their family is an illegal immigrant, right? And this is actually really important considering the crazy times that we're in. What's available to them, and I'm coming from it from a standpoint of, I want to keep the kids in school, right? We all want to do and this is me, other people don't have to necessarily agree with it, but I really feel strongly about helping all the kids to sort of come through, regardless of necessary citizenship status. But I sort of wanted to sort of ask you, if a parent was in this situation, what resources are available to him or her. Yeah.
To support families. There's a lot of organizations that are working to support families outside of the school district, but schools are we are a sanctuary district and we are a sanctuary city. So families need to understand that we are, educators are getting information so that we can protect safety and privacy of families. And we have a lot of undocumented families, bringing their kids to our schools. And there are services that we're also allocating specifically for those families. We have 2 schools in the district that are specifically focused on newcomer students, and a lot of those and newcomer programs. So there's 2 elementary schools, one focusing on Chinese language and one focusing on Spanish speaking. But then even there are newcomer programs within schools. So my daughters go to a school in North Beach, and there's a program that's a newcomer program specifically focused on kids that arrive here throughout the year. And we hold space in our classrooms even to accommodate for over the year. We know folks are going to be coming throughout the year, and there's space for them in those programs. And they become a resource and a hub for a lot of these community services. So through social workers and wellness programs, those social workers, they not only identify homeless youth, but they also identify families in need, and they can be connectors. So I would encourage families to use schools as a resource, and not just for education, but also for a connection to a lot of these community organizations. And then also specific to those, there are we've got a lot of great community organizations that are working together in concert, and they're specific, they have the capacity, like I've talked with folks at AROC, and they are the Arab Resource Organizing Center. They provide a lot of supports and resources to the Arab community and the Yemeni community, but they work very closely with the Chinese, for affirmative action, who does work with families in the Chinatown community. And so they're all connected and they're working together. And so if you could get connected to one, they can help families, connect to the right resource that has the culturally specific knowledge to really help them navigate and, get access to lawyers, get access to housing and other social services. And then I guess finally, it's another pitch. One of the things that I've been advocating for, I know Funga Moliga also has been advocating for, is community schools. And we're lucky enough at MLK to have a community school model where we have resourced a staff person who her job is to bring in resources. And so they found that just in general, kids didn't have access to dental health unless they went across the city. And so kids were missing full days just to go to the dentist. So they brought a dentist into the school. And they're doing that with community-based agencies and a lot of the work, 100% college prep and all these, the more that we can bring resources to families, we're always trying to connect them, but if they're at the school, they're already connected. And so I would love to see more organizations working in partnership in our schools with families and meeting the needs of those communities. And as we invest more in community schools, we can connect more with, organizations like that are in the Bayview that, they know the community and they have the capacity to do things that educators can't do, which is provide direct services or support parents, get legal services and things like that. If you hear about community schools or if you're connected with schools, I encourage families to start advocating at their school. We want a community school. We want to bring more resources in. And just as a final pitch, I think MLK, I heard something that they bring in about $1 million worth of resources and they pay for very little of those resources, right? So we're expanding capacity both ways. We're helping nonprofit agencies connect with families, and they're helping us as educators meet the needs that are outside of math and reading and science, which I want teachers to be focused on that, not worrying about how to connect kids with, getting a safe place to sleep, right? But we know kids can't learn if those basic needs aren't met.
I want to thank everyone. So we have just a few minutes during our regularly scheduled time. If the panelists are all right, at 1 o'clock, clearly anyone who can't stay, please feel free to sort of leave. But we have so many really amazing questions that I'd like to get through like a good chunk of that. I think one of the questions was, how do we prepare for the summer?
Well, I'll just jump in on that, and then just as general resources, and then the Bayview specific folks can talk about what they know. I think Rec and Park is a great resource. They offer a lot of programs, from camps to art programs, to sports programs, and they can be up to 100% free. But there's a bureaucracy that families may need help with in just filing for family application and then filing for scholarships. And additionally, the library is also a great resource. If you have little kids, there's a lot of free classes you can go to. There's movies. I brought my daughters to the sing-along, and I met other parents. Those are really great ways to just generally access free programming in the city over the summer.
And I actually just put in some resources into the chat.
Yeah, so I just want to say this Saturday there's a summer resource fair. It's not just Rec and Park. There's also all these great organizations that offer summer programs. My daughters found out about a Chrissy Field Center does camping programs. There's programs all over the city, and they're there, and you can find out about them this Saturday. But also you can go online and look at the Rec and Park programs. And I also encourage folks to go online at the library. And all summer long, they have a reading program with activities and makers things. You can go and do Legos and knitting and at all age levels, even adults. And so that's also, a really great resource. But if you're going to do Rec and Park, be prepared to get online right now, because there's competition for some of the great programs. And I think a lot of times our families don't know about it, and then they miss out on a chance to do some, like my daughters have gone camping, overnight camping in Yosemite through Rec and Park. And I think a lot of people don't know that that's available.
Right. Joy? Perfect.